Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March session of the Cosă and the joint session of the zoo. I've already introduced myself in the first session, so I won't repeat myself. You know who I am. And I guess we'll just start with, technically the first point of the agenda, except yes, you wanted to move something.
I'd like to make a motion, please. I'd like to ask that I move that I be allowed to address the zoo here assembled with regards to some points of data about activity and a notice about Infoteca, and then two items of note when it comes to legislation.
Right, so the way this works is I need someone in the zoo to make it first, and then we have a vote on it. Or if it's presumed to be unanimous, then we can just.
Uh, may I question the seneschal just as to anticipated time?
I anticipate it'll take me between 5 and 10 minutes. It's not a lot. I have an accompanying slideshow to illustrate what I'm speaking of, which I can make available later. And it's really mostly a matter of courtesy and illumination for you as opposed to anything else. So I
Oh,
think this will be helpful.
okay. If it's only going to be 5 to 10 minutes, I have no excuse me, no objections.
Okay, so this qualifies then as having passed by unanimous vote. Oops. Well, I accidentally muted you, so
That's okay.
okay, yeah,
Um,
you have the floor.
all right. So I'm going to request the moderator to share my screen. There we go. All right. Um, all right. So, first of all, I'd like to just let the opposition or uh, helpful opposition, however we want to define it, be aware of the fact that I would like to declare a month of recess coming up, and I wanted to make sure that would not be too disruptive to anyone's plans. If so, I'd be happy to move it back, but I just wanted to put that out there as my plan. Um, and Next of all, I wanted to draw the zoo's attention to a concern I noticed in the organic law. So this is the organic law, Article 6.3. And as you'll notice, I am legally granted the ability to expedite the zoo's consideration of legislation. And that used to be reflected in our um, statutory law, but that was removed last session by, I don't think anyone really opposed it. My reading of this is that the removal of the statutory provision actually means that I have more sweeping powers to expedite legislation, because the previous guidelines about how this would happen no longer exist. And I don't intend to exercise these powers. I have no particular reason to, but I wanted to raise awareness of this particular point and ask that people think about what they would prefer to do in this circumstance. I think my preference would be to just um, get rid of this particular point in the organic law and do it that way. But I am completely open to any particular way we want to handle this. Um, all right. So I also want to draw, as a third point, I want to draw everyone's attention to the citizen information portal. This is just a screenshot. In case you haven't had a chance to check it out, I just want to promote this fact that it now comes with a specially uh, generated prose summary at the top, as well as several prettier looking charts than were previously there. All of this is automated to pull from existing data spreadsheets, so it will require no additional work. I'm not trying to put a burden on anyone in the future. And I'm currently going to be working on documentation about how to support this, how to fix it, what everything does. That is going to be honestly like the part that's going to take the longest to write out exactly how everything works. But if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I strongly recommend you do so. I think it's pretty nifty. And if anyone has any suggestions about how else this stuff should be phrased, please let me know. I tried to do it in a way that provided helpful context both to our current citizens and to any strangers looking, so they can see what they know that things are going on. If at any point, by the way, anyone has any questions about any part of this or comments or suggestions, please don't hesitate to raise a point of order, ask a clarifying question. I'll be very happy for any of those. All right. So the broader bulk of what I wanted to talk about today was information derived from the data. I put most of the data on Infoteca into a single spreadsheet once I figured out like kind of how to make it work. And now that it's no longer the way information is primarily being presented, I think this is a helpful supplement. And in the process, I was working with it. And so I made a copy and I started messing around with mostly the correlation function on there, and just to see how things relate to each other. And just generally speaking, so correlation is how well things move together, and it doesn't imply causation. But it does suggest like these two things are related in some way. And R, or is the correlation coefficient, and it can either be like -1, like actually exactly negatively influenced, one thing goes up, then the other thing goes down, or it can be +1, where it's exactly positively influenced, one thing goes up, the other thing goes up. And you can see 3 examples of R values, all positive R values, in the illustration at the top of the slide. Where you have a generally positive R value, a very high positive R value, and a perfectly positive R value, indicating perfect correlations. Generally speaking, it's thought that any R value below 0.2, like from 0.2 to 0, is just noise, and probably not really real. 0.2 to 0.4 is a pretty real is a fairly real but pretty weak correlation. 0.4 to 0.6 is moderate, and above 0.6 is a very strong correlation. So as an example of how this can be done, I asked myself, like, do months with more Wittenberg posts lead to more immigration applications the next month? And this is not a obvious thing, but if you take the posts and you take the average posts, and then how far away you get from the average in both posts and applications, and you put it all together, then that can give you a useful number that tells you if that's any correlation. And when I did this, I found that Wittenberg activity correlates with applications, but not in an obvious way. So it's not really month to month. Instead, if you look at 3-month cumulative versus the next 3 months, then you have a pretty strong link where if people are active on Wittenberg, it indicates that there's going to be more people applying over the next period of time. And this is only a moderate connection, like we're like 0.5 here, almost, which is not nothing at all, though. It's not weak. It's pretty moderate, but it's not nothing. And it shows that there is like a significant link here between how active people are in Wittenberg, what people are doing, and how attractive we seem to potential applicants. And applications become citizens. So if we have that higher level of application, it tends to turn into higher levels of naturalization. This, I suspect, is not like, oh, sorry, I just noticed a typo there. This, I suspect, is not a direct link. I think these are just both moved by the same fact that there's more activity, so more people are interested in actually like immigrating. But again, this is a pretty strong link. And if I tried to like come up with a visualization, and it's not perfect, but It seems to me that we can identify a kind of feedback loop where there's more activity, which leads to more naturalizations. And if we look at it, also more naturalizations lead to more activity. And other factors and just luck do play a big role here because we have such a small population that a lot of different just lucky events happening can really change how things are going. So this is by no means a perfect feedback loop. It's a leaky bucket where it is only part of what we're seeing here. And then, though, I do think that even though the correlations are real but not strong, and correlation is not proof of causation, and even though our small community means big noise, and finally, that we can't really just take this as a target where we just want to crank up naturalization as much as possible, and even people who don't seem to care, we're going to naturalize them. I think that is wrong. Like this is a measurement, but it's not a good thing to just go for. Despite all that, it does indicate that if we are able to increase Wittenberg activity, we can expect it to then lead to more naturalizations and thereby increase more Wittenberg activity. Now, again, just to make it clear, as I was saying, this is not perfect, and it's not it's not like a cure-all, end-all. But I do think that it shows that our policy choices make a big difference in terms of if we can get more people interested, if we can appeal to more people, get them to apply, then we're going to tend to have more activity, and more people are then going to. It's a virtuous cycle, as I've said. And I think the data bears me out on that. I see Yak mentioning that the rates of activity and rates of applications fluctuate on coincidentally similar scale of time. So it is certainly possible, but because there's no secular cycle outside of the election cycle, it's not clear to me how that would work. Now, it's possible that it's all swamped by outside effects, but if that's the case, then we shouldn't see such a strong correlation, in my opinion. But that's my presentation, and it's a lot right off the top. No one needs to respond to it right away unless they have more thoughts. But I'll also make this available to the zoo. I already made an address which presented a lot of this same sort of thing. But when I was making that, I was like, this would be really good as a slideshow. So anyway, that's what I had to say, and I want to thank the zoo for their forbearance for letting me address them in this regard. Again, I mentioned month of recess. The Seneschal's power to expedite legislation seems to be a loophole, also that which needs consideration.
Thank you, Senor Seneschal. I actually measured the time here locally. It was about 10 minutes. Not admonishing you or anything, just for your own consideration.
Yeah, 5 to 10 minutes. That's what I
got. So is there does any member want to make any statements on this presentation, I suppose? Since it's a normal motion, people can speak.
Can I ask when the month of recess is anticipated?
Certainly. I was hoping to do it next month, but I'm asking because if there was some pressing reason why the opposition or other members of the zoo wanted me to wait, I would be happy to do that. There's no particular reason why it needs to happen next month. I just wanted to take a break from the legislating cycle and let us all focus on other matters for a little bit, sensitive to the current leader of the opposition's pointing out that not everything is politics. I think that's a reasonable thing to point out. And this would give us some chance to do some other non-legislating things, like you yourself have been doing really awesomely. But again, if the members of the zoo want me to wait, I'm happy to do that.
Does anyone any more statements to be made, or
Nothing on my end. No.
All right, if no one else wants to speak, then that's that point of the agenda taken care of. I hereby close that point of the agenda then. Right. The next point of the agenda is interpellations. Does anyone? Well, it's kind of silly to ask it this way because we only have like three members of the ZU present, and I don't want to be presiding officer and also act as a regular member because I think that's a conflict of interest. So I guess, Senor Octofio, do you have a interpellation to the Seneschal?
Yes, I have one for the Seneschal. I also have one for the foreign minister, who of course is not present, but the Seneschal is perfectly empowered to answer in his place. So if I suppose in your case with the Mensae not present, it becomes a little difficult for you to depose them here. But
Yeah, they have
yes,
the floor then.
okay, thank you. So this first one, like I said, is for the Seneschal. The Seneschal, as we know, is legally required to maintain a list of all the officers of the government and the Royal Civil Service. Permanent secretaries are not permitted to hold cabinet posts. And so to avoid any question about the eligibility of now ministers, Santanagat and Ceausescu, the king dismissed them from their permanent secretary posts in December when he was making the appointments to the current government. However, the Seneschal's list still has these two as holding their permanent secretary positions, suspended for the duration of their service in cabinet. And my question to the Seneschal is, given that these two were explicitly dismissed from their posts, can the Seneschal explain why he has entered clearly inaccurate or false information on the Seneschal's list?
Well, I believe I explained explicitly and clearly at the time I did this, but so their position is suspended. They are not serving in that office. If it's a question of semantics for whether or not the word suspended is appropriate, I'll be perfectly happy to amend the particular semantic label we put on it. But um, they are not serving in those offices, but I also did not want to list them as vacant because I feel like that would be misleading to the public, because I don't think we would be accepting applicants for those positions, if we if there were any. So I thought this was the best way to split the difference in terms of number one, showing that they weren't dismissed and in the sense of like losing their positions. I know that that appearance might exist if I just had them be gone. I wanted to reassure them that they've been doing a great job and that I intended to reappoint them at the end of their duration in cabinet if they left cabinet for whatever reason at the end of a term or because they needed to move on to do other things, and not list them as vacant, which would be, I think, misleading and confusing, but also retain that information. I guess I could list them as suspended. I could also just comment out that listing on the Seneschal's list and have L list just not have anything for that position. If that is everyone's preference, I don't think it really matters that much. Yeah, just let me know if you have any particular preference about how I handle that. I'm happy to. I don't think it's a matter of great moment, and I don't want to be misleading or in any other way inaccurate.
As a we'll keep it in the form of a question as a supplementary then. Given that they were explicitly dismissed, it's totally one thing to be like, hey, you can still have this job if you have to leave the cabinet. That's fine. But does the Seneschal not see that marking them as holding their positions from which they were dismissed is also liable to lead to confusion?
Yeah, I think you have a good point. So I think I'll probably comment out those lines, and that I think would address both concerns. As you know, I've been working a great deal on El Lista Seneschal, turning it from what was generally speaking just a kind of backwater page that not a lot of people even knew existed at all into trying to make it a place where a lot of information is centralized for our citizenry. So it's gone from just being a pretty bare bones list that fulfills the letter of the law into something that I hope will serve the public more by explicitly listing major policies so everyone can know exactly what policies are. They don't have to just have happened to have seen that post on Wittenberg, listing all the holders. I've tried to have everything translated as well. Um, and also listing contact information and job openings. So it's been dramatically expanded. And it took a good amount of work to like get everything in place. And I think it's probably inevitable. I was gonna screw up on one of those points along the line and focusing on a lot of this other stuff, not recognize that one aspect of confusion. So I thank the member of the zoo for the for pointing out my error, and I'll fix it probably right after this meeting and just comment out those lines. That way, there is no further confusion.
Right. You said you had another question to was it the foreign minister?
That's correct. Excuse me, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
This one will be there's automatically going to be a follow up supplementary, but it's going to depend on the answer to the first one. So, um, so for the foreign minister, uh, represented here by the Seneschal, uh, there is one of the organizations that exists out in the kind of broader micronational community is the Micronational Olympics Federation, currently running an event called the 2026 Esports Games. Various, even simple, chess competitions and things like that. They are recently began their, uh, like I said, the 2026 edition of their games. And I guess my first question, very simply, is: did the government know about this event?
I didn't personally, but I try not to micromanage my cabinet ministers too much. While I think that ultimately I'm responsible for everything that happens in the government, at least in terms of making sure that there are good outcomes uh, as much as we can sustain that, even if I'm not like personally doing the thing. Um, and but I try to let everyone do their thing in their way and not try to stay up in their business. So I was not personally aware of that, but that doesn't mean our foreign minister was not. So I'm gonna actually not step in to answer this one, and instead I'm gonna request that you submit this as a written interpellation, so that way it can be answered with more by someone with the expertise that you're talking about.
All right, I think that's a reasonable request. I will reach out on Wittenberg to Minister Briga.
And just as a side note, if you would permit me, I would mention that if you want to do that, you probably want to do that before the end of the month because tripulations are not allowed during a month of recess.
Yes.
I mean, actually, in point of fact, they're allowed with the permission of the presiding officer. And I would say, hey, absolutely, they're fine. Not a big deal for that for tripulations during a month of recess. But I know that our Tuisak, Tuisak feels strongly about adhering to the rules and always maintaining not just the integrity and that we know he has, but also even the appearance of impropriety is something he wants to avoid. So I wouldn't want it to put him in a difficult position. That said, also just a friendly, question, not even a legal interpolation will definitely get you an answer, I think.
I'll prefer to keep it an official one. It's all the same, but
Yeah, that's fine.
but
I
yes,
have,
no, your point about the end of the month is still well taken. So
I've made the requested changes on L list, by the way.
Yes, I forgot to unmute myself again. Just as a heads up, the flattery was not necessary. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm just doing my job. This is, as I said, like, yeah. Yeah. If there's no other interpolations to be made, then the next point of the agenda is debate on the clock. And the first bill is my own 62 RZ14 Bruce King Swing Mitigation Amendment reconsideration. I don't really have anyone else to transfer like the office of the presiding officer to, so I can't really talk about it myself. As much
I mean,
as
you are entitled to name deputies, I believe. But
yes, but I don't
but I
really
also
have.
agree that with only three of us, it's a little odd.
I am perfectly fine if you would like to speak on behalf of your bill. I don't think it diminishes your authority or neutrality as presiding officer in any way, to acknowledge the fact that you are also a member of the zoo that over which you're presiding, which is very normal.
Yes, no, the problem is rather that as the bill author, I would have some sort of incentive to push positions that further my bill as presiding officer. You know, there's just some sort of conflict of interest that could possibly be there. There's a point why presiding officers are usually neutral on these matters, or why there's even the option of assigning deputies when it comes to this stuff.
If you'd rather just move on to the next bill, it's your prerogative as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, I can speak on the bill if no one minds. We could put it on a vote.
Go.
If anyone objects, they could make an appeal. Well, so my bill, which was already on the clock last month and was voted down in part by me because the deal with the government fell through at the end because there was not enough time for the government MZs to have switched to abstain. Well, the bill itself hasn't changed, and the logic behind it hasn't either. The bill is a very simple change to change the apportionment of new citizen seats to be only 4.5% instead of the current 7%. It was a separate bill from the pseudo-real Cosă Act because I figured it has very little to do with the size of the Cosă itself, because up to 7% unelected MCs would be an issue, no matter the actual absolute size. It's just 7% unelected members, basically. And the senator pointed out that that such a proportion of unelected MCs would be undemocratic. And I agree, like, I don't dispute this at all. So yeah, this bill is meant to fix this. And coincidentally, well, not coincidentally, but as a side effect of this, should the PRCA come into force next year, it would set the number of new citizen seats to 0 then, but not in the meantime. It would basically keep them unchanged from now up until then. The only thing it would change would be the maximum number of new citizen seats, which we have never even remotely reached. The maximum was 3 in one clock, I believe, out of currently 15. Yeah. So yeah, I hope it passes the clock this month. Okay, that was my part. If anyone wants to make a statement on it, then they're free to do so.
I think you've already kind of hit all the all the all there is to say about it. It's a very reasonable change that even even if we, weren't also trying to change the size of the COSA would still be perfectly acceptable. We've only ever had 2 or 3 new citizen seats occupied at once, far short of the 15 that we're currently allowed. So uh, yeah, it's was very maybe optimistic when it originally passed, but uh, but also does introduce a sizable possible sizable component of the COSA that is not elected, and that's something we should try to avoid, regardless of how many seats exist. So uh, it's a good provision, I think, to not completely get rid of, since these seats have, I think, been shown to be a good way to try and get new citizens involved and interested in how Tolosa works without dumping too much on them right from the get go. But uh, it's also, a question of how far should we allow that to go? And right now the limit is definitely too high.
Thank you. Any other statements to be made? If not, we can go on to 62 RZ15 Kunstverwaltung Reform Amendment, which is sponsored by the Seneschal, so you have the floor.
I have 3 bills on the clerk this month, and I don't have anything in particular to say about them that hasn't already been said. I'm happy about all 3 of them. If anyone has any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to ask, but I think that they are self-evidently important.
Thank you. I'll just give a moment for Senator Tofu to maybe signal that he wants to make a statement on it. If not, we can just move on.
No, I'm okay.
All right. So the next one is 62 RZ16 BHAID Humanitarian Assistance to Sudan Resolution. Senor Saracomprada is not present here, so there's no interlude to the bill. Any statements to be made on that? Yes, Senor Seneschal, you have the floor.
It has been my general policy to begin abstaining from all of the make work senses of the zoo, which I think are a substitute for like definitive action or an apology from this particular MZ. But I am gonna urge people to vote against this one specifically because the government, at the urging of this MZ, hired an expert to help us direct our charitable donations. And the person appointed was a member of actually the central committee of the URL. So it's a across the aisle appointment, even of someone who can speak out in terms of what the best allocation of the kingdom's charitable funds are going to be. And I'm not going to immediately then assist with cutting her legs out from under her and saying, actually, never mind, do this instead. So I would urge people to vote against this one.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak up on this?
The Seneschal basically said what I was going to say. We already have funds for foreign charitable donations budgeted out officially now. So let's work through those first. And if we get to a certain point in time where we all feel like we have money burning a hole in our pockets, and we'd like to be particularly charitable, we'd like to revisit extra foreign donations in the future. Sure, but this is let's let the foreign ministry, the permanent secretary, do their thing, and come back to it with further legislation in the future if we feel necessary.
assume with no other statements to be made, we can move on to 62 RZ17, Party List Priority Act, sponsored by Senor Ottofio. You have the floor if you wish.
Yes. So this bill, of course.
Sorry, point of order.
Yes.
Would the member yield for a question?
For a question, yes.
I just wanted to know if the member had been made aware of the fact that my objections to the bill were not intended in good faith, but rather a development of recent struggles, and that I hope to see, regardless of the outcome here, something affecting something similar to this happen in the future.
That is good to hear. Yes.
All right.
Now, does that? Okay.
No, you're still entitled to make your opening statement, basically.
Okay, cool. No, I wasn't where I just wanted to make sure we had that question addressed.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But
I mean,
but yes, okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, there we are. Sorry. So this bill is simply intended to make sure that parties, when registering for elections, are putting forward a list that is transparent to the voters. The voters they know who it is they're electing to the Cosă, and is meant to make sure that when the time comes for parties to assign seats after an election, that it does reflect the will of the people who voted for that party. Whether doesn't really matter what party. Obviously, we all have to play by the same rules. But the idea is to encourage transparency to the voters and to encourage that the outcome of the election actually mirrors what the people expressed when they were in the voting booth. That's really the goal of this legislation.
All right. Yes, Mr. Michel, you have the floor.
Sure. Just to speak to having the outcome mirror what the voters expected when they cast their vote in the ballot booth, the voting booth. This would tend to undermine that at certain times if there aren't enough active legislators because a party is unexpectedly successful or grows quickly. And then the actual, the composition of the zoo is not going to mirror their intent. It's going to be explicitly overruled. But that being said, I do think that this is something that we're really talking about, like kind of a middle ground here, and there's a way to square the circle and make sure that both the possibility of small parties to grow quickly is respected and the will of the voters, if there's a big change that needs a big immediate swing in the vote, that's possible, while at the same time making sure that we don't have surprise people added for, out of the blue to represent the vote, except when it's absolutely necessary or something like that. So I think that there's a path forward, but I do think that actually the main principle we want to respect is, again, the voters getting what they vote for. Thank you.
Senor Ottofio, do you wish to make another statement?
Yes. No, this bill will, of course, increase the likelihood of people getting what they vote for. I will say that it seems almost like the Seneschal's concern is that this makes it impossible to appoint members off list. That is not the case. I know that there are some folks out there who think that off list members are entirely undesirable. I think they provide a reasonable, a bit of, we'll say, leeway or wiggle room, however you decide to phrase it. But ultimately, I think that at the same time, if you grow so quickly that you need off list members, that's okay. But you also need to prioritize the ones that people voted for when they were actually casting their ballot. If you have to bring people in afterwards, that's fine. I believe the Seneschal's party had that happen. this term, where they won more seats than they were eligible really to hold, because they had senators, whatnot as well on their party list who are obviously ineligible. So, but we want to make sure that the oh, did you cut out or did I? Okay,
I can
okay.
still hear and see you, or I can still hear
Okay,
hear you and see Toffee.
Okay, I couldn't see him. That's why I was a little concerned that something happened. But
No, I just
but yes,
disabled my own camera. Something brief came up. That's fine.
oh, okay, all right. You never know with network connectivity issues. But yes,
Yeah, I would have
so
said something. Don't worry.
Okay, fair. But yes, the idea is still to make sure that ultimately, we also want this to be electing members of the zoo, right? It's yes, parties are important, but so are the people, and this is intended to maybe recognize that, as opposed to simply making it a party brand, if you will.
Thank you. Any other statements to be made? Then we can go on to 62 RZ 18, the Immigration Application Cleanup Act. So Senechal, you already said you don't really have anything to mention on this bill. Are there any other statements to be made? Doesn't seem to be the case. Or I don't know. No?
I wanted to say it explicitly just so that we weren't waiting.
Okay. No, I just, you never know. Then we can move straight on to 62 RZ 19, the Zouaves Name Correction Act, also by the Seneschal. Any statements on this? Doesn't seem to be the case. Then let's move straight on to 62 RZ 20, Sense of the Zoo, Global Governance of Artificial Intelligence, by Senor Comprada, who was, as previously mentioned, is not present today. Any statements on this? Again, no. Then we move on to the last point on the clock, 62 RZ 21, Sense of the Zoo, Iranian Freedom and Democracy, by Senor Comprada. Any statements to be made on this? Okay. And in that case, I close the debate on the clock bill, and we can move on to voting, unless anyone wants to raise a point or anything. Doesn't seem to be the case. All right, I'd like to ask the Secretary of State then to record the votes.
Okay. Hope you can all hear me clearly. Luckily, just 3 votes to record, I believe. So
Yes.
okay, so let me call the roll first for RZ14, which is the Bruskin Swing Mitigation Amendment reconsideration. Michel Toffil has cast his votes already, so unless he wants to change his votes, I might just skip over, or maybe he wants to restate those votes.
I do not intend to change any of my votes at this time.
Okay, so I will just. Oh, and also Baron Dovinescu has also, the Senechal has also voted already.
Correct, and I do not intend to change any of my votes either. I believe that we are just going to be asking Sierra Tafel if what he's going to vote.
Indeed, so thank you for the clarification. So
that's exciting.
unless there's any objections, I will just ask for the votes of the Tuishach and record those manually using the database, I guess. So RZ14, the Bruskin Swing Mitigation Amendment Reconsideration.
Per?
RZ15, the Kunstaval Reform Amendment.
Per?
RZ16, BHAID, Humanitarian Assistance to Sudan Resolution.
Contra?
RZ17, sorry, the Party List Priority Act.
Per.
RZ18, the Immigration Application Cleanup Act.
Austaneo.
RZ19, ZUAV's Name Correction Act.
Per.
RZ20, Sense to the ZU Global Governance of Artificial Intelligence.
Austaneo.
And RZ21, Sense of the ZU Iranian Freedom and Democracy.
Austaneo.
And lastly, the vote of confidence.
Austaneo.
Thank you. So your votes are being recorded as follows: RZ14 per, RZ15 per, RZ16 contra, RZ17 per, RZ18 austaneo, RZ19 per, RZ20 21, and the vote of confidence austaneo.
Yes.
Unless anyone wishes to change their votes, the process of calling for votes on the clerk is finished.
This must have been what calling the roll sounded like when King Ben was the only person who could vote.
Yeah, pretty much.
Presumably, yeah.